welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into the captivating world of Whitewater State Park. Picture this: southeastern Minnesota, nestled right in the heart of Winona County's stunning blufflands. That's where you'll find it. Our mission today is pretty straightforward, really. We want to uncover the compelling story, the must-see features, and, those truly fascinating details about Whitewater. It's the kind of place every curious explorer and lifelong learner should probably know about.
Absolutely. And it's more than just, well, a pretty park. Whitewater protects a really significant and scenic chunk of the historic Whitewater Valley. What strikes me is just the sheer variety packed in there. About 2,700 acres, but it's a real mosaic. Native plants, lots of wildlife, all within this landscape shaped by, well, ancient geology, but also more recent human stuff, too.
And for people who love getting out there, Whitewater is like a natural playground, right? We're talking miles of hiking trails through those bluffs, campgrounds, great fishing.
Right, and waters.
Amazing bird watching, even a place to swim. It pulls in, over 250,000 visitors a year?
Yeah, it's popular. And for good reason.
Okay, so let's peel back the layers. Starting with the history. This land was home to people long before it was a park, wasn't it?
It certainly was. For generations, the Dakota people lived in this valley. They knew it intimately. They actually named the river Miniska.
Miniska.
Yeah, which translates beautifully to whitewater. And as we dig deeper, you'll see how fitting that name really is.
Interesting. Okay, fast forward a bit. The valley goes through some pretty big changes. The sources talk about a century of transformation.
Right. It's kind of remarkable, especially thinking about its centennial back in 2019. The area went from, mostly untouched wilderness, then to farmland, and then incredibly sort of back towards its natural state. But it wasn't a simple or easy journey at all.
No, because the sources really highlight some serious environmental issues during that farming period. Erosion, mainly.
Exactly. Late 1800s, early 1900s, the farming was intensive. Plowing up the native prairie, it destroyed those deep root systems that held the soil. So when it rained or snow melted, massive amounts of topsoil just washed away, clogged up the streams.
And that led to flooding.
Devastating flooding. Villages like Beaver, just north of where the park is now, got hit repeatedly. I mean, get this. In 1938 alone, Beaver flooded 28 times.
28 in 1 year. Wow.
Yeah. Eventually, it was just abandoned, buried under sediment, gone.
That's stark. So amidst all that crisis, how did a park even get started?
Well, even with the problems, locals recognized the valley's beauty. They wanted to protect it, preserve that scenery. That push led to Whitewater State Park being established in 1919. And then during the Depression in the 30s, the New Deal programs were huge.
The CCC and WPA.
Right. The Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration, they built a lot of the early infrastructure. Trails, shelters, stuff visitors still use.
So park development, but also wildlife efforts happening around the same time.
Precisely. Starting in 1932, the state began buying up that abandoned farmland. The idea was to create a game refuge, restore wildlife populations, and that initiative eventually became the Crystal Springs trout hatchery we know today.
And there were key people driving this conservation push.
Definitely. Richard J. Dorer was a major figure, really passionate about fixing the erosion problems. He was key in getting soil and water conservation districts set up in the 1940s. Winona County's was actually the first in Minnesota.
First in the state. Impressive.
And local farmers were involved, too, trying out experimental practices, contour cropping, rotational grazing, trying to heal the land.
Sounds like a real community effort. What's the legacy of all that change?
It's profound. Only 2 of the original 5 valley towns are still there. It's a clear reminder of those floods and land use impacts. And the conservation work isn't over. The Whitewater Watershed Project is still active, managing resources, dealing with invasives, sediment, flood risks.
It's an ongoing story.
It really is. Thinking about those lost towns really drives home the long-term effects of how the land was used.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. Talk about the geology. What makes this landscape look the way it does? The sources mentioned the Paleozoic Plateau.
Yeah, that's key. Whitewater's geology is different from a lot of Minnesota. Most of the state got scraped heavily by glaciers. Here, the glacial deposits are thin. You've got ancient bedrock much closer to the surface. And over millions of years, the Whitewater River and its tributaries just carved right down into it.
Creating the bluffs.
Exactly. The blufflands and this distinctive karst topography.
Karst.
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of rocks are we actually seeing there?
Well, there are 3 main layers you'll see exposed. The oldest one at the bottom is the Jordan Sandstone, about 510 million years old. It's mostly quartz sand grains, often looks kind of yellowish or brownish because of iron oxide coating.
Like rust?
Sort of, yeah. And you can sometimes see these cool patterns called crossbedding.
Crossbit.
Think of ancient sand dunes, like desert dunes today. The layers built up by wind millions of years ago are preserved in the rock. It tells you about the environment back then. And importantly, it's porous. Water moves through it easily. That's why you get springs.
Feeding the streams.
Right. Above that Jordan sandstone is the Oneota dolomite, about 505 million years old. This is the harder stuff. Tan to gray. Forms most of the big cliffs you see. It's mostly dolomite rock with some sand and shale mixed in. It also has fossils, like algal stromatolites, remnants of ancient algae mats, and caves.
Caves form in the dolomite.
Yeah, the dolomite is a carbonate rock, so slightly acidic groundwater can dissolve it over long periods, creating caves. Karst features.
Okay, Jordan sandstone, Oneota dolomite, and the third layer.
That's the Shakopee Formation. It's the youngest bedrock you see there. Elsewhere, it can be pretty thick, maybe 150 feet. But in Whitewater, it's mostly just thinner remnants capping some of the higher bluffs. It's similar to the Oneota, maybe a bit sandier. Also has stromatolites and sometimes preserved ripple marks from ancient shallow water.
Ripple marks, cool. So you don't see the layer below the Jordan.
No, the St. Lawrence Formation is down there, but it's not exposed in the park itself.
So how do these layers, interact with the river to make the valleys and cliffs?
It's about how easily they erode. The Jordan sandstone is softer, so it wears away more easily, forming the wider valley floors. The Oneota dolomite is tougher, more resistant, so it stands up as those steep cliffs and bluffs.
Makes sense.
The rivers basically exploit that difference. And sometimes you get interesting things happening, like with Precipice Bluff. That was formed by stream piracy.
Stream piracy. Sounds dramatic.
It kind of is. Imagine one river eroding backward, cutting through a ridge, and essentially stealing the headwaters of another stream. That's stream piracy. It dramatically changed the drainage pattern there.
Wow. Nature rearranging the plumbing. And groundwater is obviously important too.
Absolutely critical. Those springs popping out all over, that's groundwater seeping out where the porous Jordan sandstone meets the less permeable Oneota dolomite above it.
And that keeps the streams cold for trout.
Exactly. Cool, clear water, perfect habitat. It shows the health of the water system. Plus, that slightly acidic groundwater dissolving the dolomite creates the caves, the karst features.
But no sinkholes in the park itself.
Not that are known, no. The slopes are pretty steep, so water tends to run off the surface rather than pooling and seeping straight down to dissolve the rock underneath like you need for sinkholes. Oh, and fun fact, some of the older park buildings down near the beach, they're built from Oneota dolomite quarried right nearby.
Using local materials. Nice touch. Okay, knowing the geology really adds depth.
Yeah.
Now, for people wanting to explore, let's talk hiking. About 10 miles of trails.
That's right. Plenty to explore, and they really showcase the different environments. A great one to start with might be the Chimney Rock Trail. It's a less than a mile loop, pretty easy, though there are stairs. You get right up close to that 500-million-year-old bedrock. See Chimney Rock itself, that pillar of Oneota dolomite. It even has a little cave at the bottom people like to look at.
A cave at the base. Neat.
Oh, yeah. And on that trail, you also see the Shakopee Formation, maybe spot those ripple marks, plus views across the valley. You can see other caves in the bluffs. The Jordan Sandstone is visible near the start, too. It's like a mini geology tour.
Sounds perfect. What about other trails? Different views?
Sure. The Inspiration Point Trail, the 1.2-mile loop, is moderate, mixes woods and overlooks. Great views, especially into the more untouched back areas of the park. It connects to Trout Creek Trail, too, so you can make it longer.
And Trout Run Creek Trail.
That's a lovely one. 2 miles round trip, easy, self-guided nature trail. Known for diversity, wildflowers in spring.
Beavers, maybe.
Potential beaver activity, yeah. It had those nice arched bridges and a little waterfall at the end. Just, be aware in warmer months, rattlesnakes are possible in that area. Be watchful.
Good advice. Any tougher trails?
The Dakota Trail is the longest, about 4.2 miles, moderate to difficult. Great bluff-top views, a small stream crossing, quieter forested sections, also potential beaver sightings there. Then there's the Meadow Trail, easy 2 miles, gets you views of those big 200-foot cliffs. And another, shorter trail, also called Inspiration Point Trail, only half a mile one way, but it's steep. Lots of stairs, over 100. But the reward is that amazing pre-settlement vista.
So definitely something for everyone. Any key advice for hikers?
Yeah, the main thing is stay on the marked trails. It protects fragile plants and prevents erosion. And remember, collecting rocks or fossils is a no-go inside the park. Gotta leave things for others to see.
Preserve the resource. Makes sense.
Oh, and you can ask about the Elba Fire Tower at the Visitor Center if you're interested in that historic structure.
Good tip. Okay, shifting gears a bit. Wildlife and other natural stuff. I heard this rumor about whitewater. No mosquitoes. In Minnesota. Seriously.
It's true. Well, very few compared to most places. It's because of that porous limestone bedrock. Rain just drains away really quickly. No standing water for them to breed in.
That's a huge selling point for camping.
It really is, especially in summer.
Yeah.
And the streams, the Whitewater River and Trout Run Creek, they're full of brook trout. Great fly fishing.
Catch and release in the park.
Yep. Year-round in the park boundaries. The regular season outside the park starts mid-April 2025. And the name Whitewater, it's not about rapids. It's the chalky look the water gets in spring from limestone bits eroding.
Ah, interesting. So great fishing, fewer bugs. Sounds ideal. What else can visitors experience?
Well, the park offers free naturalist programs. Those are fantastic. Wildflower walks, morel mushroom hunts in spring, owl prowls at night.
Owl prowls. Cool.
Yeah, bird banding demonstrations sometimes. You can even borrow GPS units or birding kits from the office.
Handy. Lots of birds there.
Oh, yeah, really diverse. They have a checklist available. You'll likely see Canada geese, wood ducks, wild turkeys, maybe ruffed grouse. Bald eagles are common.
Nice.
Red-tailed hawks, too. Maybe less common, but keep an eye out for eastern screech owls, pileated woodpeckers. Even golden eagles are occasionally spotted.
Golden eagles. Wow.
And we mentioned timber rattlesnakes, just be aware. Spring wildflowers are amazing, especially along the Carton Campground Trail down to the river. Wild ginger, bloodroot, Dutchman's breeches.
Jack in the pulpit.
Yep, Jack in the pulpit, false rue anemone. Lots of delicate stuff. And then in fall, of course, the hillsides just explode with color from the oaks and maples.
And there's swimming, too.
There is. A nice swimming beach on a little lake formed by a bend in the river. Perfect for cooling off.
Sounds like year-round appeal.
Oh.
Okay, practical stuff. Facilities.
Yeah.
If you're planning a visit.
Whitewater's well set up. The visitor center is your starting point. Info, maps, probably some exhibits. Camping-wise, lots of options. 104 drive-in sites, many with electric. 6 walk-in sites. 8 cart-in sites.
Cart-in.
Yeah, you park and haul your gear a short distance, usually with a cart they provide. Gets you a bit more secluded. Also, 3 group camps, 4 camper cabins.
Cabins are nice.
Yeah, a good option. And a group center with 8 cabins for bigger groups. Reservations are definitely recommended, especially busy times. Use the DNR website. And quiet hours are 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the campgrounds.
Standard stuff. Picnic areas.
Yep, picnic spots, shelters. There's a fishing pier, a gift shop. The usual amenities. Just remember, pets need to be leashed and aren't allowed in buildings or on the beach. And firewood buy it there, or from an approved vendor, helps stop invasive species.
Right. The firewood rule is important everywhere now. And if people have more questions,
contact the park office directly or the main Minnesota DNR Info Center. There's also a Friends of Whitewater State Park group. They do great work supporting the park.
Good to know there's community support. Now, there was a major event relatively recently, the 2007 flood. Sources mentioned extensive damage.
Yeah, that was huge. August 2007, massive rainfall across the Midwest. The driftless area with its thin soil and steep slopes got hit really hard. Whitewater suffered badly. Lost 3 bridges completely, campgrounds, bathhouses, roads, lots of infrastructure damage.
Had to close the park.
For a while, yeah. It took a lot of work to assess and then start rebuilding.
How's it recovered since then?
It was a major setback, no doubt. But the park has really bounced back. They had to rebuild, sometimes relocate campgrounds to safer spots, put in new structures. So while the flood is part of its history now, Whitewater has been revamped and is fully operational and beautiful again.
That's great to hear. Resilience. So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what are the main takeaways for listeners about Whitewater?
I think it's that compelling mix of stunning nature and this really rich, complex history. You've got the ancient geology, the Dakota homeland connection, the struggles with erosion from farming, and then this inspiring story of restoration. It all comes together in this landscape. The geology shaped it, water carved it. It just invites exploration, whether you're into hiking, camping, fishing, birding, or just, soaking up nature. Whitewater really delivers. It appeals across the board.
It certainly sounds like a special place. Any final thought for listeners thinking of checking it out?
Maybe just to reflect on that interplay we talked about. How human actions have shaped this valley, for better and worse, and how understanding that history makes you appreciate the park even more. I'd really encourage you to go explore yourself. See that unique blend of geology and ecology firsthand. experience why some call it Minnesota's nearly perfect state park, and connect with its powerful story.